Hello, everybody, and welcome back once again. It's good to be with you. This time, meetings, and more meetings, right? Really, how do you get any work done around here with all these meetings? Well, the truth is, we don't really have the right kind of meetings, right? What we want to do is make sure that when we have meetings, that we are working through it in an efficient manner. So, we want to plan every meeting, right? We want to invite attendees that should be there, not just the same group week after week because, right? I know that feels good. We want to reschedule the meeting if the required attendees can't participate, right? And we want to inform these attendees of the objectives so that they can come to the meeting with the proper mindset and prepare some notes. Of course, we want to make sure it's in a comfortable time and location too. And frankly, the best run meetings do end before their scheduled time. So we want to start with a follow-up from the previous meeting with the minutes and the deliverables that will be expected. And then when we start our next meeting, I start with the deliverables, right? Hold the team accountable. They want to help build up something great, so hold them accountable. Start the meeting on time. Don't review progress for the latecomers, right? They're late, they have the agenda, they know what we're talking about. Identify a meeting leader. In fact, I even identify, if you jump down, a person to take minutes, and if you and also a person to be the timekeeper. So when I send out an agenda, here's what we're going to cover. I add a time limit to them. I don't make the timekeeper an obvious artifact in the meeting. I just have them give me a subtle note that we're approaching our time so we can begin to wrap it up and move on, right? And these really are the foundations of a great meeting. The person taking the minutes is also taking the tasks or deliverables that will be required. And that is going to go into a task list that goes out with the minutes. And again, I start building my next meeting agenda with a status update on the deliverables. Now, part of leadership also means removing critical impediments to any effort. So impediments are anything that keeps the team from being productive. A lot of times it's just different organizations, different cultures, different priorities that aren't well established or aligned with your own, right? So there's some common impediments on the slide. One power you have is escalation as a project manager. You want to use it diligently. You don't want to use it every time. Because if you do, you will be, as the story goes, the boy who cried wolf. But it is an important power for you to have. And you don't want to just escalate. You want to have informed leadership that you may escalate a little bit of the background so that they can be prepared when you actually do. This is a slide that shows some common corporate impediments. Maybe it's the project manager becomes the product owner. They're different roles for a reason. Maybe team members are working on various projects, right? So maybe not everything was included due to, and so there are constraints, process, maybe a tradition within the corporate structure. Testing is a classic example. Right? In many organizations, there are separate testing teams where the results get missed or tasks. Maybe it's slower bug resolution if it's an application, and loss of or slowness of feedback, that sort of thing. So project culture can cause the team to lose momentum. So teams are often formed around one project, especially in Agile. You stay with it. And in the project culture, learning sometimes suffers. Team can lose momentum. So you want to make sure you bind the team, meet their needs, and stay consolidated. Stakeholder management is a very important topic. We've talked about this many times. The project manager has roles and responsibilities, and part of it is informing or soliciting from the sponsor what their roles and responsibilities are going to be. So a good way to begin the sponsor management process. Sponsor is somebody that owns the budget, and frankly, in every knowledge area, initiating, planning, executing, controlling, and closing, the sponsor should have a role. But they're not running the project. The project manager is. But they have an important role. So in the initiating process group, for example, they are going to sign your charter. In the planning process group, they will sign your project plan, for example. In the monitoring and controlling process group, they should be on the change board that you establish. So you want to have some meetings with them, understand their role, and understand your own role. Ask the sponsor, what are your limitations on my role? Or help me define my authority. What are your communication preferences? How often? Do you like attachments? Do you like a bottom line up front type statement? That sort of thing. What is your tolerance for risk and for variance reporting, right? Is it greater than 10% so I can manage it within 10%? That sort of thing. Then I want to build a stakeholder map. I want to understand and plot my stakeholders on this map, which will be updated regularly. The map can look like this. And so on the left, I will plot people based on their influence from low to high, and on the bottom, their commitment to the change. Because every project tied to strategy is driving corporate change from a current state to a new state, and we're filling this gap, right? And that's going to help me know how I can manage, or do I need to move sponsors, which means maybe additional communication with them, right? Once the project team understands the power that each stakeholder has, the next step is understand their disposition to the project. Maybe they're resisting your project because your project took from their budget. You know, we want to figure those things out, plot them on this XY type axis, and then begin to move them in a communications way to where you want them to be. So we can develop key stakeholders along the way, right? It's actually vital to have a development plan for the key stakeholders. They form an essential part of the stakeholder management plan and the communications management plan. Right? Those are subsidiary plans of the project management plan that define the processes, procedures, tools to effectively engage and communicate with stakeholders, because the goal is to analyze their needs and then meet their needs, interests, and ensure the impact that they expect to get out of it. So the sponsor being a critical leadership role, particularly in the success of your change-driven type project, right? Whether it's predictive or agile, it's all about change or a current state to the next state. So we want to make sure there's clear accountability, legitimate reasons for people to engage in change, get a sense of commitment from them, get their support for difficult decisions, etc., right? Now, part of that then is building trust with your sponsor, with your other stakeholders like team members, and etc. Now, open communication is key to developing trust, and the areas on the right are ways to do that, to address open communication, to do team building events, to assess their sense of vulnerability on the project, right? By clarifying their roles, by understanding their sense of risk tolerance, risk thresholds, etc. We want to acknowledge their value and ensure that trust, which can be rare, is achieved, because that's going to give you a competitive advantage. So we want to define trust, right? Trust is not the prediction of someone's behavior just because we've known them for a long time, right? It's those who trust learn to be open, even exposed to failures. And that's really what trust is. It's willing to be vulnerable. So it's a vulnerability-based trust, right? It's based on this one simple and practical idea that people who aren't afraid to admit the truth won't engage in the political behavior that wastes everyone's time and energy. So open communications and building trust involves these factors: achieving trust, being willing to take risks without a guarantee of success, being vulnerable without knowing whether that vulnerability will be respected or reciprocated, right? Good emotional IQ. If it's not reciprocated, I'm still going to remain positive, open, listening, communicating, etc. And then I want to get comfortable and become unafraid of honestly saying things like, I was wrong, or I need help, or I'm sorry, right? These are things that many people I've known struggle with. Now, this exercise is something I do in class, so we're not going to do that here. We will save that for in class. And in the end, then, how team trust creates team maturity. There's a relationship to getting to a high productivity team by ensuring team trust, which develops that team maturity, which can happen along this path. That's all I have. I've enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing you online.